about the 5 people on the ballot for the Cardinals Hall of Fame. You're on the Red Ribbon Committee. The 5, and I'm sure most of our listeners know this already, but for those who don't, or just a reset, it's Edgar Renteria, Steve Carlton, Matt Morris, Joaquin Andujar, and who else did I mention? David Freese, of course. Sorry. So what are your thoughts about, A, what you think will happen, and B, if you were the king of the world, who you would put in from that group?
Well, David Freese is going to win, and fans vote on this. And right. David Freese probably didn't have any one season as good as the best season of any of the other 4 guys. But I'm surely Carlton anyway, and the other guys too probably. But without David Freese, those banners aren't flying in Busch Stadium. And so he's going to win. That's okay. Now, what should happen, I think Joaquin Andujar should be in the Hall. I think all those guys should be in, actually. Renteria, Morse, Carlton. I mean, it looks a little silly to have Carlton in the National Hall of Fame as a first ballot, mind you, and not in the Cardinal Hall of Fame. And he was there 6 years. It wasn't like he was never there, 3 years is a cutoff. He was there 6. Played on 2 World Series teams, 1 champion team in '67. I really don't understand it, but the fans vote, and he wasn't seen by many voters probably that take part in that thing. But he was fabulous, and now was he a media darling? No, but that shouldn't be any problem either,
No. For Andujar, there's back-to-back 20-win seasons, 84 and 85. He was phenomenal in the 82 postseason. Great start against Atlanta. Two great starts against Milwaukee, including Game 7. And another of his starts, the first one, gave them a 2-1 series lead. So that was a big moment. 85, it didn't go so well. So I'm just talking about the good and the bad. But anyway. He was clearly one of the very best pitchers in the National League and baseball during his peak with the Cardinals, and he got Cy Young votes those 2 years. He finished 4th both of those 2 years. He played a huge role in winning the World Series in '82, which snapped a pretty long drought, and he was an all-star for a couple years. I mean, I go on and on and on. Innings eater galore, just all kinds of innings. In fact, I think in the National League, his 4 full seasons, I think he led the National League in innings pitched. So, I mean, there's a lot to like there. There's more to it than more to it than maybe I thought on the surface once I started digging in on it. And so, go ahead, sir.
It's enough for me that he won 20 games, the last Cardinal pitcher to win 20 games 2 years in a row. We're talking that happened nearly 40 years ago, and we're talking Gibson did that, but nobody else did.
Right.
And he was a big part of Cardinal lore because of his colorful personality too. I mean, he talked a good game, and for a while there, he really backed it up.
If I were to say, and I'm not being a phony here because I do believe all 5 of these guys belong, and I think all 5 of these guys will get there. And it's kind of like, even fans are, just kind of forced to make a tough decision on this stuff. Now, the guy that I, bang the drum on is Edgar Renteria because, I mean, that guy got a lot done here in St. Louis. And if you look at where he ranks in franchise history among shortstops in all these really important categories and all the awards he won, the Gold Gloves, the Silver Slugger, only guy in franchise history to win both of those awards in the same year more than once. He did it twice, back-to-back seasons, I think. And, he I mean, he was one of the best shortstops in the game for quite a while, and if you look at Cardinal shortstops that have had about 1,500 plate appearances in the history of the franchise, he's number 2 in a lot of things, and he's number 3 in a lot of things. I mean, he's right up there with the guys that we talk about being great Cardinals shortstop. So I tub thump for him a little bit. Well, a lot actually. I think he's getting overlooked. I'm not sure why.
Well, you go by comparisons, and Tom Hurd was a great player with the Cardinals and a very popular player. Clearly more popular than Renteria because Renteria is not in and Hurd is, but Hurd was no better player than Renteria, and Hurd was a good player, but Renteria was an outstanding player too.
Yeah. He's got two of the three highest RBI totals by a Cardinal shortstop in a season, including the 103 back in 2003. I mean, that's the most the Cardinal shortstop ever had in a season. And then the one thing the one capsule is, 6 seasons, St. Louis, 3-time All-Star, won 2 Gold Gloves, 3 Silver Sluggers, was a starting shortstop for 4 postseason teams, including the 2004 champion. Only Cardinal to win a Gold Glove and Silver Slugger in the same season multiple times. And then, even though his overall postseason stats were not overwhelming, he had a hell of a World Series in 2004 where hardly anybody hit. I mean, really great numbers. I won't read them. People take my word for it. But if you look at him from 2000 through 2004 with Renteria as their shortstop, the Cardinals ranked 4th in the majors in regular season winning percentage. They made the playoffs 3 times and led the NL during that time, 2000 through 2004, led the NL with 17 postseason victories. And he's a big part of all that. So I think he'll get in, but it's just I just get the feeling, though, about him, and I could be wrong, Commission. I'm sorry to do so much talking. I apologize to you and our listeners. But with him, I think he probably doesn't get enough consideration. In other words, I'm not going to even argue most of the guys that have been voted in ahead of him, but I just hope that that what he's done, what he did for the Cardinals, carries sufficient weight where people will actually kind of stop and look at what he did and really give it more thought. That's my hope right now.
Yeah, and he didn't have the C on his jersey, but La Russa called him the captain of those teams, and those teams had one Hall of Famer already in Rowland, a sure Hall of Famer in Pools, and a possible Hall of Famer in Jim Edmonds down the line. So that's a pretty good player to be named the captain over those guys.
No, I agree. And then, and Matty Moe's another guy, and we had Bill DeWitt III on yesterday, and he's kind of got a soft spot for him. And, Matty Moe with the 101 wins that, not too many Cardinals pitchers have gotten to 100 for the franchise. And then there's some other things, too. He's like 6th in strikeouts, and, he's way up there in innings, and, his pitching stats are good. So he'll get in, too. But it's there's really no way to speed rush this, especially with one guy getting in now, which I think's fine.
Well, you have Morris was kind of the Carpenter and Wainwright of later eras. In fact, I think there was not a season in about over 20 years and one of those guys wasn't pitching because Carpenter came while Morris was still there. And then Wainwright, of course, came while Carpenter was establishing himself. So we've had one of those 3 guys pitching for the Cardinals since the late 90s.
Right. That's right. That's a good point. Really good point. And with Freese, it's really overwhelming what he did in 2011. It wasn't too bad in 2012 either in the postseason. And, he did have a 20 home run season. He did make an all-star team, the fan vote. But it's just, especially so many years have gone by now. It's 11 years since 2011. The fact that it's been a struggle for the Cardinals to win another World Series. I think what he did takes on added importance. And I can't knock anybody at all for voting for him because that was a very, very profound chapter in Cardinals history. And I've never believed you have to play 8, 9, 10 years for a franchise to be considered for the Hall of Fame.
Well, and those 2 series, the League Championship Series and the World Series, he had those 3. He had a triple home run and a double in succession in Games 6 and 7. But he was enormous against the Brewers in that previous series. He was the MVP of that series too.
Right.
And after starting off horribly against the Phillies, where Tony was about ready to bench him, and then he hit a home run there, and he closed out that series strongly. it takes a certain man to be that good in that limelight. Now, if this was maybe a media vote rather than we put the ballot together, but if this was a media vote rather than a fan vote, I wouldn't be surprised if the media would vote for somebody else to go in the Hall of Fame ahead of him. But having said that, I cannot knock the fans for putting David in if they do indeed do so, because of what he did those great nights in October of 2011.
Yeah, I mean, he still holds the record for most RBI in a postseason, most extra base hits in a postseason. I mean, that's holding up very, very well. So anyway, it'll be fun. It'll be fun, and I love talking about this stuff. Even if maybe our preferred choices don't get in, I'm talking about you and I. It's still fun to talk about, and I think the fans love it as well. So it'll be good stuff. Commish, I wanted to just go down to Rick Hummel. The great Rick Hummel is with us, as he is every Friday here on the Bernie Show, usually right around 5 o'clock, but we'll always tell you the time if it's different. Just some of the things we're to keep an eye on now that the exhibition games are about to start. What is your anticipation? This is kind of a popular topic. What is your expectation for Gio Gallegos being able to acclimate to the pitch clock? He has been one of the slowest pitchers in baseball as far as delivery time between pitches.
He had his first session facing hitters a couple days ago, and he was actually pretty good. He might have only missed one 15-second, and he can always say he was pitching with 20 seconds because there was a guy on base, maybe a ghost runner, but he was all right. Now what happens when there's real competition out there? He won't be pitching tomorrow. Don't know about Sunday. I wouldn't expect to see him till Monday, maybe. So then we'll find out. We won't have much problem with the starters in the next couple of days with Wainwright and Miklasz. They'll be lucky to get to 10 seconds before they throw a pitch.
That's right. Yeah, I think Gio's going to handle it. He's a smart guy. It may be maybe a little uneasy at first, but I don't think this is going to be some chronic issue. At least I hope not for his sake. All right, what are your expectations? There's been John Denton did a heck of a story about Nolan Gorman and what he's been working on. Primarily, he's got to get the pitches high in the strike zone, especially the four-seam fastball. And people seem to be pretty upbeat by what they've seen. I'm talking about Cardinals people. Do you think that he'll be able to get a handle on that to the point where he'll be more consistent in 2023?
I think he'll be a good player for them in 2023. I don't know what position he'll be playing. Will he be playing second base or will he be a DH? I guess they could do both. I hate to have a guy limited to just DHing at his tender age. He's only, 22, 23 years old. So I'd like to see him in the field. I'd like to see him be fighting the outfield sometime, but that hasn't happened. And I don't know. I guess it won't because they have Jordan Walker out there competing with the three established outfielders they already have. But Gorman's going to be a big player for them. And they have to have left-handed pop in their lineup. You've got Contreras right-handed, Goldschmidt right-handed, Arenado right-handed, O'Neill right-handed. Nootbaar had his moments as a left-handed power hitter last year, but Gorman is a left-handed power hitter they've been counting on, and I think they can count on him.
I'm with you, my friend. I'm with you, and I think, I wasn't surprised to see that he's been focusing really all off season as well. He had a pitching machine that throws high-speed fastballs, 100 miles an hour, up in the zone, and he worked in the cages at home or wherever he headquarters himself for baseball during the off season. And the reason I think I buy into this as being a positive thing that'll really help is because throughout his minor league career, as you know, and most fans maybe know, it followed a pattern. He'd get overwhelmed. They're doing this to him. They're doing that to him. He's a little overwhelmed. Things unravel a bit. But then he always made the adjustment and got on track. So there's a lot to be said about how smart the guy is and how mature he is. There really is. So I'm optimistic as well.
I think he'll benefit by not being the focal point of the next young gun in the system. Jordan Walker has inherited that role from Gorman, who inherited it from Dylan Carlson, and I think both Carlson and Gorman will do better this year because they're pretty much well under the radar right now.
That's right. Well, speaking of Walker, and I don't know that there's anything to talk about until the games begin, which is tomorrow, but you have been on the ground there now for a little while, a week or so, a little bit less than a week. What's the buzz? Are they happy with what they're seeing from him, with his work in the cage, the live batting practice, things like that?
Well, his work ethic is really good. I think he's been okay. He hasn't hit, 15 or 20 moonshots that people were still talking about. And I think they want to see him face big league pitching that isn't their own big league pitching. So guarded optimism, I think. They're not going crazy with him because O'Neill swung the bat well and Nootbaar swung the bat well, and so was Carlson. So those are the three guys right now. Right. And Walker will have to beat one of those guys. You can't keep Walker as a utility guy or as a bench warming guy when he hasn't even played a minute in AAA. You have to send him out if you're not going to keep him on your team. And these other guys, O'Neill will be gone for a while with the Canadian Olympic team. I don't think very long. I don't think Canada's very good this year. So I do not think they'll make the Final Four coming out, or Final Two coming out of that regional, as it were, with the USA and Mexico probably better than Canada. Only two teams would make it out of there to get back to Miami. So I think Walker's been fine, but I don't. People are not going gaga just yet because they kind of want to wait and see.
Commish, what do you think about Tyler O'Neill wanting to play center field, wanting to earn the starting job, as it were? Do you like the idea?
I'd like to see him be out there. I was surprised that he hadn't played center field in any other year before now. He's a Gold Glove left fielder, and if you got a left fielder that's that good, you don't want to waste him in left field. Put him somewhere else where he can help you more.
Right.
He has good side-to-side speed, it looks like. Carlson had some moments in center field last year where he was good, but I think O'Neill throws better than Carlson. And Nootbaar has played center field too, but just acceptably, not spectacularly. I mean, the best center fielder they had was Bader, of course.
Right.
And so I think O'Neill's it's worth a look. Again, this spring is going to be more disjointed for the Cardinals than any other club because they have 13 or 14 guys on their 40-man roster plus 19 in their system that'll be gone to the World Baseball Classic, and most of them run pretty good teams. These guys will be gone for 3.5 weeks. O'Neill may not be. That would probably benefit him for Canada to lose in the first round, and where he could be back here and taking care of business, trying to retain his starting job and maybe claim a starting job in center field.
It would if he's right, he would also provide a power element as a center fielder that's not all that. What's the word? It's not frequent at all. I mean, you if you look at, Mike Trout hits for a lot of power. There's a couple other guys. Don't get me wrong. There is some power among center fielders, but O'Neill would be kind of at a whole another level if he's right. I mean, and that's the big question. So that'd be another thing because you figure they probably have enough offense in the corners, maybe they upgrade in center field. But that brings us to Dylan Carlson. And, again, John Denton, hat tip to him because it was a pretty informative story at MLB.com about it where, Carlson all off season now to this point in the spring training, he's eating a lot of meals. He's on a program to pack calories because he felt he was too thin last year. He can't keep weight on during the season. So I guess he's put on 14 or 15 pounds. I'm going to ask you how he looks because Denton thinks he looks different. So what do you make of all that?
He looks different. He's kind of experimenting with his eyesight with wear too. He's been wearing glasses once in a while, and I don't know what he's going to do during the season. Maybe he might do one left-handed and one right-handed. I don't know. He's still working with that. I'll tell you, he looks in good shape is Yepez. Yepez was a little bit doughy last year, but he looks very, very trim now. And people talk about Gorman hitting 30 home runs, counting AAA and big league last year. Well, Yepez had 28. That's pretty good too.
That's a good point, man. And I'm Mr. Numbers, but I don't even think I realized that. No, I mean, and he slugged 447 at the big league level. I mean, that's nothing to sneeze at for a first timer. That was good. So,
and he'll get plenty of time to play first base while Goldschmidt's gone, because Yepez is not exactly Vic Power or John Mattingly down there or Keith Hernandez down at the bag. But if he can play acceptably, that doesn't mean you're going to take Goldschmidt out of the lineup when he gets back. That means you can put Goldschmidt as a DH maybe once every week or two to get him off his feet on the field if you trust Yepez enough to play the bag.
Well, since you dropped in a Vic Power reference, I'll see that and raise you with Jim Spencer and Wes Parker.
Very good.
See, me as a kid,
Diamond Jim Gentile. Now I noticed.
No, I did. But me as a kid growing up in Baltimore, he never was an Oriole, but he grew up about 10 miles from where I grew up. And so the local papers were always writing Jim Spencer stories from Linthicum, Maryland, who was near the airport there, about how great he was defensively. And actually, he really is. He really was, all kidding aside. But, yeah, Wes Parker could handle the lemon down there a little bit, too.
Yeah, he was a very underrated player. The Dodgers had some more high-profile players other than he. But he was a big part of their championship seasons there.
Finally, about looking ahead, and I, again, we're really going to know when the regular season starts. But again, it seems like everything around Jack Flaherty is pretty positive, which can only help. And I don't think it's the usual spring training, kind of like false positive. He had a brutal spring training last year, as we all know, and he seems to be, for whatever it's worth, in a pretty good place right now. But do you think that will translate into a good season for him, where he's closer to where he was, 2-3 years ago?
Well, as we view it now, I would have to say yes. But given his history, I'm going to remain a little bit guarded with this one. They've made it, for basically 2 weeks of drills without anybody of consequence being injured at all, including Flaherty and all the other guys. The other pitchers that seemed to throw a shoe early in camp. So they're solid there. They got 6 starting pitchers. Now, do they have a couple that are as good as any two somebody other teams can put out there? I don't know, especially even in interdivision with Burns and Woodruff with Milwaukee. But I like what I've seen of Flaherty. I mean, he's not going to pitch Monday in the varsity game against the Mets. He's going to throw on the backfields, just as are Montgomery, I think, and Mets maybe after that in succeeding days. The Wainwright and Miklasz are pitching in the varsity games because they're getting ready to go into big-time competition with the WBC. So maybe they would be under the same format as these other guys if they weren't leaving right away. They're going to get about maybe 2 starts here, maybe 3, and then they're gone.
Kamish, are you going to remain in place there for a while, or coming back to St. Louis anytime soon?
No, I'll be here until March the 22nd. I am wearing my Associated Press hat. I'll be appearing at Port St. Lucie on Sunday with the Nationals and the Mets. I'll be at the Cardinals game with the Nationals tomorrow. Then I have a Cardinals game Monday with the Mets here, and then at Nationals on Tuesday. Then my marching orders after that for Associated Press are indefinite as we speak. But there'll be they have interest in about 3 of the 5 teams that play here: the Mets, the Astros, and the Cardinals, and no interest in the Marlins or the Nationals.
Kamish, as always, man, a delight to talk to you, and look forward to next week.
I do too, sir. Thanks for calling.
No, hey, man, believe me, the honor and the pleasure is mine. Thank you so much.
You bet.
That's our friend Rick Hummel. And they're keeping him busy. So I got to ask Jim Hewer, since commission.
I'm sorry, I'm still laughing over Vic Power.
That's what I was going to ask you. Since he drops a Vic Power into the first base discussion, and then I saw that and raised him with Jim Spencer and Wes Parker. Would you like to put a card on the table with a somewhat obscure first baseman?
Sure, Willie Montañez.
Oh, he was good for. I saw him mostly when he was with the Phillies. He was pretty good.
Yeah, the reason that name always sticks in my head is neighbor had a Willie Montañez glove when I was a kid, and I thought it was the coolest thing. A first baseman's glove. It was the first one I ever had a chance to use. I was like, wow, Willie Montañez, this is awesome. So it sticks with me.
And people can text in with us too, but the Cardinals, for quite a while, before Goldie was acquired, they ran through, basically, I ain't going to say a first baseman a new one every year, but they ran through a lot of guys too. The guy that I really enjoyed watching playing first base, and this was probably pre-Albert Pujols, although he didn't play first base for the Cardinals right away. Albert was a left fielder in the first game, early in that 2001 season. He played quite a bit at third base and eventually started to move over to first. But I really enjoyed that season, or it might have been two, when Greg Jeffries was the Cardinals' first baseman. He was good. And I found him to be a pretty good guy, man. You heard all the stuff about him in New York and this and that. And, did he have a little diaper baby in him? Yeah. But he wasn't a bad guy. And if you look at his 2 years as a Cardinal, 93 and 94, I mean, my goodness, in 93, the man hit .342. He had a .408 on-base percentage. Both of those numbers are outstanding.
Mm-hmm.
He slugged .485, and in terms of OPS plus, he was 42% above the league average. And then he came back in 94, which, of course, was cut short by the work stoppage. But in 94, same type of deal. He hit .325, close to .400 on-base percentage, and .489. And he was a National League All-Star both seasons, and he got MVP votes both seasons. So I don't have enough time to do this, but I love these kinds of things, and I like to write and talk about things like in kind of list order. If I were to think about, all right, what are some, since my time in St. Louis, which was really like 1985 is when it started, during my time in St. Louis, what are some of the really underrated seasons that have occurred since the mid-'80s all the way up to now, where I just gave you those Greg Jeffries numbers. They were just phenomenal. But I don't know that anybody, including me, thinks about Greg Jeffries all that much. He was really outstanding. His 2 seasons as a Cardinal first baseman, that has to be pretty high on the list with those kind of numbers.
100%. And I'm glad as soon as you brought him up, I tell you, it just jogged a memory and of those teams in those 2 seasons. The team was not great, but Greg Jeffries during that time was a must-watch at bat. He was so good at as a hitter during that time. It was like Jeffries is up, like, all right, hold on a minute. I'm going to stop whatever else I'm doing, or I've got to wait to put off to go outside or do whatever. I got to see Jeffries his at bat, and he never disappointed. I mean, he was so tuned in and such a quality hitter at that point in those 2 seasons. You're right, underrated. They definitely get forgotten. There's no doubt.
And let me tell you another one. He wasn't my favorite kind of guy, but respect where it's due. If you look at, listen, he was, I'm not going to give you the name yet. Mm-hmm. He was actually in St. Louis for 3+ seasons. But someone go look at Jed Jerko, like in 2016 and 17. We're talking, he had 30 home runs in 2016. And then followed up with 20 the next year. A lot of doubles, too. Well, maybe not. I take that back. But, even though he was only about 12, 15% above average overall, I mean, he had a lot of power. at a time. Remember, the Cardinals were coming off that 2015 season where they had excellent pitching. In fact, it was historically good starting pitching in terms of ERA. It was one of the best of the last 30, 40 years. And that's no hype, because I did a big piece on that, I think, for The Athletic at the time. But they couldn't score. I mean, that team was really bad offensively. I think it was one of those pitcher-dominant seasons throughout Major League Baseball. So when they traded John Jay for him, I thought it was a really good move, because Jerko, the reports that he was healthy, and he had to kind of reestablish his career a little bit, because he was pretty bad in 2015. And listen, those first couple years as a Cardinal, guy was a hell of a hitter. I mean, and he really did something to help them get over that power void that was pretty bad back in 2015. So he's another little bit under the radar guy who had a couple good seasons when they needed his power, because they were not good in terms of power hitting in 2015.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about him. That's a good memory, because you're right about this power. It was almost to the point at times he'd get so hot, you're like, geez, why don't we play him more? Why don't we find more places? And then he'd cool off for a little bit. But his power was really, really outstanding. Yeah, he was, and then he started to tail off. And in 2019, he wasn't very good, and got hurt and everything else. And then he also sort of became a sourpuss. And I'm not talking about the media, just generally became kind of a downer. So, but he had a good 2-year run. So if anyone else has got someone to nominate, I like hearing that kind of stuff. We sort of do this on a Friday, unofficially. I came up with some first basemen. That's been
Who did? You did?
No, the texters.
Okay. What do we got?
I had, let's see, Norm Cash was sent in.
Yeah, he had an unbelievable year. I'll find it. He was pretty damn good for a long time. I think he was. That's a smart listener right there, because I think Norm Cash in baseball history was pretty underrated. I really do.
That is a good name.
He was like 40% above average offensively for his career. He had a year in 1961. I was not around for it, but I'm just a baseball history nut. 1961 at age 27 for the Tigers. 41 homers, 132 RBIs. Hit .361. His on-base percentage was, believe it or not, near 500. He slugged .662, and his OPS plus 101 points above the league average. And he finished fourth in the MVP voting. I don't know who the hell finished the top three. Probably Mickey Mantle in there. So that was the year Maris and Mantle and all that. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
But that was one hell of a season. So he was really good for a long time. Hit 377 home runs, drove in 1,000 runs, really good career slugging percentage. But the consistency is what made Norm Cash really good. And I saw him play. I mean, because his career went to age 40 through 1974. So when the Tigers come to Memorial Stadium, I definitely saw him play a lot of games in Baltimore when the Tigers were in. He was good.
Another from our texters, Dick Stewart, Dr. Strangeglove.
He was really an interesting character.
I don't know much about him. I know he played for Pittsburgh a lot, but that's all I know.
The two things I know about him is that, and I never really saw him play. Although he did play through 1966, he was a pinch hitter his final couple years, though. Mm-hmm. Is that nickname which you mentioned, Dr. Strangeglove? Yep. That's number one, and it's because he was so bad defensively. And I remember reading something, and I can't say where it was, but I remember thinking that's really funny, because it might have been Baseball Digest or something. Someone wrote a thing about how he wore his pants, uniform pants, the tightest of any player in the major leagues, and his teammates would always just like, how does he even move? And I remember reading that thinking, yeah, what's wrong with this guy? I was just a little kid. I'm like, what's up with him? But he was, again, before my time, like in 1963 for the Red Sox.
Mm-hmm.
How's this for a year? 42 homers, 118 RBIs.
Nice.
And then he became like a really well-respected kind of bench guy. But apparently he got MVP votes 3 times, So, yeah, that's a good one. And he was definitely a character, too. But he could play some ball now. 35 homers in 61. I think maybe because that was an expansion year in the American League. There were a lot of guys putting up huge numbers that year.
I like it. Good numbers. Good memories, too, with some of these names. That's great.
It is. Well, thanks for those. If you got any more, hold on. Let me see my guy, Baby Cadillac, has to say.
Oh.
Well, he was right about Felix Jose. Felix Jose really did have a couple good years, and I'll kind of get those numbers on that when we return. And I always wondered why he didn't last, why he wasn't better, because the talent, the athleticism was there. Yeah, he was kind of an enigma, but that's a good guy to just bring up, since we're doing this somewhat obscure or overlooked or guys that we don't remember the way we should. I think Felix Jose's a good guy to bring in. Some people say Mark Whitten as well.